Good evening, Uganda, and welcome to the show. My name is Patrick Kamara. Now, the Non-Allied Movement Conference or Summit is taking place in Kampala in a couple of weeks. And this is bringing over 100 countries into Kampala. It's Uganda's biggest summit ever to be held in this town. And after that, we have the G77 plus China also coming to Kampala. And as we speak right now, the speakers of the Commonwealth heads of government, the speakers of the Commonwealth countries are also having a summit in Kampala. So it appears all roads of the world, or all the airports of the world, are leading to Kampala. So tonight we'll be looking into the Non-Allied Summit and the G77 plus China Summit that are coming to Kampala. What will be the benefits for Uganda? And how was Uganda able to punch above her weight to bring such huge summits to Uganda? And my guest this evening is Uganda's permanent representative to the United Nations, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. Ambassador Adonia Ayebare, thank you so much for having honored our invitation. A warm welcome to you.
Thank you for having me, and good evening.
I can imagine as a top diplomat, it is your job, your docket, and many other people to bring the summit to Uganda, Non-Allied Movement, the 19th is coming to Kampala. After that, you have the G77. One wonders, how does Uganda really punch above her weight to land such huge summits?
Thank you. As you mentioned, it's teamwork. We're a team. At the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, but the entire government, from the president who is the chief diplomat down, it takes an effort to have such a big meetings, such a big summits. But it's also the history of the country, the principled positions Uganda has taken on the international stage, the independence we take at the UN, where developing countries like Uganda really stand up for principles in international relations, rooted in international law and morality. So that gives you credibility to host such a meetings.
I mean, first of all, to host such a meeting, there are logistical challenges that you face. You have probably over 50 or maybe 100 presidents coming to town. You're just beginning to build a conference hall for them, and maybe expanding the hotels. You're having roads that are in a pathetic and sorry and embarrassing state, Adonia. I mean, will you even pull it off?
Logistics aside, I think what matters is what the country has to offer, in terms of organization. I mean, there is even the much developed countries like the US, New York, where I am, that hosts the General Assembly every year. Believe it or not, there are potholes. Not excusing Ugandan potholes. You cannot be completely perfect to host these meetings. So long as you have a good venue and you have roads where guests can come from the airport and go to the hotels. And in Uganda, we have excellent hospitality hotels. I mean, we have a brand new conference center at Munyonyo that is one of the best in the region. Yeah, but you see, you're talking about a brand new conference center. It is still under construction. You don't have to want to have your visitors coming in and the paint is still dry, wet. No. It's done. It's not under construction. It's new.
They are still working as we speak tonight.
No, it's new. It's new. It's brand new, and I really encourage you, Kamara, to go and visit. It's amazing. This that has been done under 1 year, and I think we should be proud that we have such a facility, and it will be used for future, for conference tourism. I think we should be proud of that. And we are ready. With such a venue, we are ready to roll, state of the art. Guests will really be impressed by what
does it really make sense that you have such a huge conference that is being built? Of course, you put in colossal sums of money, but you're still building up to the last day of your guests coming in.
No. I think it's ready. And prepare. I have been to countries, and I don't want to name them, where the level of preparedness, it takes a lot, like you said, to host these meetings. And I think the good decision government took to have a conference center that is really up to standard. And I think it's been finished within time compared to countries I've been going to. And the countries that are coming, advanced teams are coming in this country to check, and they're impressed. And that explains why we're having a lot of confirmations at heads of state level and government.
But you see, the global spotlight is going to be on Uganda. And this is the moment when Uganda is supposed to dazzle the world. To say, here we are, and this is what we have.
Yeah.
But really, when the spotlight is on us, what do we show?
Oh, it's a lot to show this country. Aren't you proud of your country? I mean, it's beautiful. Look at the venue itself. It's on the lake, Lake Victoria, one of the largest freshwater lakes in the world. We have to show our beauty. We have to show our ingenuity. We are going to really put up a very, 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 good show in terms of welcoming our guests, but also in terms of doing business, in terms of substance.
I want to go to the substance, because I wanted to begin with you the logistical preparedness of Uganda, because it worries me when you look at the roads where we are. In fact, when you were coming here, Nile Avenue is in darkness. Nile Avenue, where Serena Hotel is, which is a 5-star hotel in the heart of Kampala, is in darkness.
Yeah, logistics, everywhere you go will never be perfect. But I can assure you, the Kampala City Council Authority is, and I am privileged to be part of the National Organizing Committee. We have had tough conversations. We have worked hard. And I think most of the streets are being lit. And I think we learn from that we don't need to wait for visitors to, have rights. I think, but what is important is that this country is hospitable. People will come and enjoy it. Don't really be consumed by the, potholes here, lights here. But I think by the 14th of January, things will be in order.
And the 14th of January is like tomorrow, my brother. And you because at the end of the day, when people come, ministers and other people, there are those who would want to, after the meeting, you want to go sightseeing, you want sightseeing monuments and the sights and sounds of Kampala. And I'm worried, because you do that, even when you go for summits. Maybe the organizers, you would want to take your friends from New York, take them around Kampala. I'm sure some people are going to be embarrassed.
No. I'll take them out. See Kampala at night, and everything will be fine. You cannot be, this is Uganda, this is East Africa, this is Africa, and we will be just fine. And guests will enjoy. This is not the first time we're hosting a conference. We hosted CHOGM, we hosted African Union Summit, we hosted OIC. But and we are hosting speakers.
CHOGM is smaller. It's not comparable to NAM. It's not even compared to G77. Yeah. We are talking about 120 countries. 130 for G77 plus China. This is a big thing.
It's a big deal. And these are developing countries like Uganda. Most of them, actually 80%. And they know the challenges of developing countries. And people are actually impressed the fact that we offered even toast. Some countries that call themselves well off than Uganda have not dared to host. The fact that we are hosting, people will be modest. They will know what we have to offer, and it's what we have to offer that really matters. And we will really host. I can assure you that we will have a well-organized and well-attended.
You know why I'm talking about the logistics and the preparedness? Because when a summit like that comes to your city, it's supposed to leave you better in terms of infrastructure.
Yes. Yeah.
Because we are banking on CHOGM, thinking maybe CHOGM would change us. Somehow that never happened. That bus left us. And we thought when NAM is coming to Kampala, it would leave Kampala with better infrastructure. But it appears even that bus has also left us.
Actually, CHOGM left you better. It left you Munyonyo Hotel. And Munyonyo Hotel has hosted a lot of conferences. And what NAM will leave you with a brand new conference center. Some roads are being repaired and they will be ready. They will be remembered. A new terminal at the airport, arrival terminal, that we have really worked on for NAM guests. But I should emphasize that we should have a culture of really being, ready and for visitors.
All right, so the presidents are coming to Kampala, coming to Munyonyo for the summit. What does Africa or the global south really benefit from the non-aligned movement?
The global south really benefits a lot in terms of solidarity. These are 120 countries, member states of NAM, and we will leave Kampala as 121 countries. South Sudan will join, has been approved to join. So all African countries now are members of the non-aligned movement. The non-aligned movement is not a non-aligned movement of the 60s and 70s. These are rich economies. India, Indonesia, Malaysia, South Africa, mention them. And we can do what we call South-South cooperation, where we learn from each other, support each other economically, politically, socially. I think the benefits are immense. If we can leverage our solidarity of developing countries, we can really improve our economies, improve our security, improve...
And what has been a stumbling block in the countries in NAM not to improve on security and the economy before? Because this is the 19th summit is coming. NAM Allied started right after, I think, the Second World War. So what have been the tangible benefits of this movement?
My brother, the major tangible benefit of this movement has been decolonization. You remember most of these countries lived under the yoke of colonization. The non-aligned movement led the struggle for decolonization, and almost all NAM member states are independent. That's a huge achievement. Most of them are economically well off. I mentioned India, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore. All these have economically...
Majority of those countries have been free for the last 60 years.
Yes.
So what has been the relevance of NAM in the last 60 years?
Don't mind about the name. I'm telling you, the statistics really bear out themselves. You know, look at India technologically. Look at Indonesia. Look at Malaysia. Look at Singapore. Look at South Africa. Look at Botswana. Look at Uganda. The strides we have been able to make economically. Really, we're advancing. Now what is remaining, the challenge is how do we together face globalization, the geopolitics together, and work within solidarity to consolidate the achievements which have been a lot.
That consolidation may not happen. You know why? Because almost every year there is an embarrassing episode that happens when our leaders, with all respect, are summoned in those capitals. You know, they are in Moscow, Russia Africa Summit. They are even Turkey nowadays, the Africa Turkey Summit. India is also now calling African heads of state to go to New Delhi. And by the way, sometimes they even put them in a bus, like it happened in London. Some of those things are so embarrassing. I mean, and so how do you align? You're non-aligned, but tomorrow you're going, all of you, to head to Washington, more or less, you know, and then you come, before you know it, all of you are heading to Beijing. Before you know it, all your heads of state are heading to New Delhi. I mean, some of these things really have to change.
I really feel your pain, but I agree. But the challenge is we have the African Union. And the African Union has taken a decision to audit all these partnerships and see what benefits Africa more. That Africa is 54 countries, 55, 54. That how can countries just call the whole continent to attend meetings? I think this is under review by the African Union, and the report will come out. The report will come out that will advise heads of states that you cannot.
They should actually stop it. They should actually stop it.
No, but
because
some of them,
you know how you know, even some countries, with all respect, everybody's having a go at Africa. Yeah, calling our 50 heads of state in one place.
Yeah, but
sometimes attending two or three summits, you know, meeting with the leader of another country. Why can't you, the diplomats, think about bringing them? If Joe Biden or Vladimir Putin wants to meet the African leader, let him come to Addis Ababa.
Yeah,
let him come to Kampala, and we will converge in Kampala.
Absolutely, and this has happened. For example, talk about the China-African Forum has taken place in Africa many times. You know, where the Chinese leaders have come to Africa, and I think there are proposals to that effect, that some of these meetings should take place in Africa. And you are right, you know, Africa pride matters, and I think the African Union has taken cognizance of that fact, that we need to really evaluate all these partnerships and see what are the tangible benefits Africa gets from these meetings, and this is going to happen soon.
So now, when you take a position as NAM, after that, the G77 comes, maybe you take a position. Before you know it, you have India-Africa relation, you have Washington-Africa relation, you have Moscow-Africa relation. I mean, what exactly is your position?
Let me tell you, Africa is part of the developing countries ecosystem.
Yes.
You have Asia, you have Latin America, you have Africa, you have the Middle East. Africa is the largest constituency, for example, of the G77 and NAM. We have the majority of numbers
because we have smaller states on the continent.
Yeah, but numbers matter in international relations, and really I will start with NAM. And Africa has really the largest number of member states, so Africa influences what goes on in NAM in terms of bringing African issues to the fore, and Africa benefits immensely from and G77, which is the largest negotiating body, 134 countries and China at the UN. Nothing passes in multilateral forums, not only at the UN, but without the concurrence of G77. And we will be discussing, Uganda will be chair. Uganda is the first country to chair both organizations, NAM and G77. And diplomatically, that is a big deal. We are going to be heavyweights of diplomacy in the world. But how do we turn this and leverage this for the benefit of the member states?
How do you do that now? Because that's going to be in your docket, Ambassador Adonia.
Yeah, with the team at Foreign Affairs and other missions where they are NAM and G77 chapters, but New York is the coordination center. That will really be done by having a good team, which I already have, and building on it, and support from Kamara. And we are going to chair these two major bodies that really represents the global south at a critical junction with the geopolitics that is going on, with the war in the Middle East, with economic meltdown, with climate crisis. All that will be, and we have a big meeting next year called the Summit of the Future at the UN that will really reform the multilateral institutions, not only the UN, but the Bretton Woods institutions as well, that will look at those reforms. So we have to coordinate the voice of the global south to participate actively in those negotiations. So those negotiations,
for example, climate change is going to be an issue, I'm sure, that will be looked into by the Non-Aligned Movement Summit and also the G77. I'm sure you have attended so many COPs, the COP26, 27 in Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and 28 was the other day in Dubai. Sometimes they commit for climate financing. I remember $100 billion in Scotland. It never came.
We hold their feet in the fire because there is a tendency of countries, developed countries, not to pay. Africa and developing countries are the least emitters of greenhouse, but we are the ones that really pay in terms of damages. And we negotiate hard. G77, for example, is the largest negotiating body in every COP. And we have pressed, you have to meet your commitments. There is the tendency between mitigation, which is, here 1.5 degrees, and also adaptation. Adaptation means that it's finance. And we are saying that the two go hand in hand. On one hand, you cannot tell us, slow down the pace of development, so that you protect the environment, but you don't want to pay for it, the rich countries. That tension, and also the tendency to rig the system by working outside the UN Convention framework on climate change and trying to, put money here and here, and developing countries are awake these days.
So we are putting the pressure, but what we see that the results are not coming, because from G26 in Scotland, when some of the commitments were made, the money never appeared. So where was the pressure? Where was the G77? Where was NAM? Where was the African Union? And yet we are contributing least to the emission, and we are being hit hardest by the global climate change. The guys, the people in the northern hemisphere are promising money, and the money does not come. But you're saying you're putting pressure. The pressure is not showing us any results.
No, it is. Sharm el-Sheikh, for example, the loss and damage fund that was approved, by the developing countries led by Egypt, which was chairing COP. And that loss and damage fund now has been put into practice. It has been established. The institutional framework is there, and money, a lot of money was pledged in Dubai to that fund. And that's progress. These things don't come easy. We have to keep on pushing so long as we are united as developing countries. And G77, and even NAM is not a negotiating body in COP, but G77, as long as we are united, and we have solidarity, we can push the system. And it's not sustainable for developed countries to keep on failing to meet their commitments.
So when you meet in Kampala as NAM or as G77, what are the most important things that you want to look at, and probably will be the issues that the leaders will take away? Because I understand President Yoweri Museveni will even take the chairmanship, right?
Yes.
Of NAM for the next 1 or 2 years?
3 years.
For 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are the things that you're going to coalesce around and say this is what is going to come from Kampala? Maybe do we expect a declaration, or the Kampala declaration, or the Kampala...
let's start with NAM. There are two products that are going to come out of NAM.
Is it that you hopefully will come out of NAM?
Yeah, and and I have the privilege of going to lead the negotiations.
Okay.
So the final outcome document, which is a big document that really covers the politics, the economics, and the social developments in all developing countries, the global south, the entire global south. That will be negotiated. Then there will be the Kamara declaration, which will be, Uganda will take a lead in drafting it as the incoming chair with a vision. And the vision is shared global prosperity, which means that one part of the globe cannot be prosperous at the expense of the rest of the globe. And this theme was picked by the president himself. So we will develop a declaration which will also, of course, be endorsed by the entire membership, and that will guide our chairmanship for 3 years.
Isn't it interesting that when you're talking about global prosperity, January 1st, 2024, Uganda was cropped off from the AGOA program.
When you, yeah, well, exactly.
I know it's not a member of NAM, but that shows you where we're headed, because, you know.
Precisely that. That's trade, for example. Trade should be evenly distributed around the globe. The benefits should be shared. If one part of the globe says we are going to benefit from trade, but the rest of the world shouldn't, that's not sustainable, and that's not correct. So developing countries in the global south have said, look, we want to share global prosperity. And South-South cooperation is precisely about that.
I see a conflict of the value systems, because we sometimes find ourselves in trouble because of the different value systems. You know, this is what is causing, for example, the scrapping of AGOA. It's about values.
Absolutely. And we don't.
So how do you align those?
Absolutely. And we don't need to go there. We really, what is at stake is our people to get out of poverty through solidarity. You know, leave alone the politics and clash of values. One value, you know, being poor is also not a good value. And I think what really gets interesting with the global south is that it has woken up to the fact that we need to express solidarity, help each other to get out of poverty, even share technology. You know, solidarity cuts across different sectors, and South-South cooperation has become a force to reckon with in terms of, look at ODA. You know, ODA has been declining, you know, while South-South cooperation has been increasing. South-South cooperation means that Uganda can help South Sudan, can help Kenya, Kenya can help Uganda. And that solidarity is based on, that help is based on solidarity. And it's measurable.
Okay. Ambassador Adonia Ayebare, hold on to your points, sir, because you're going to take a break on the spot. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching On The Spot. My name is Patrick Kamara. My guest tonight is Uganda's permanent representative of the United Nations, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. Well, we ended our first segment when we were talking about the clash of values, but of course we have had our own issues in this country, and we seem to have angered other countries, especially in the northern hemisphere, with our laws, with our values, with what we decide to do. And you, as a diplomat, this must have been a very difficult moment for you to be able to represent your country in New York, when most of the New Yorkers think we're not very good people.
That's what sovereignty is all about. We're a sovereign country, and the value system reflects what we are. And I'm really proud to defend values my country stands for. Really, I am. And I think diplomacy is very, very interesting. And when I'm engaging these countries, they understand that we are different. But these decisions are taken, you know, based on their values. And there is what I call creative tension. It's tension, but it's creative. And we find a way of doing business where we agree.
You know, there is a tendency that I seem to read from Western capitals that Uganda is more or less like a pariah state. When it comes to the minority rights, we are like hounding and haranguing people, and perhaps even people being killed on the streets. I mean, have we failed to defend brand Uganda for people to know what is exactly happens? Because you know, what you read they may think this is the worst place to be. And yet, when on the streets of Kampala, I haven't seen anybody being hunted down because of values. So what is the missing link in projecting the image of Uganda? And I'm not talking about the politics, because our politics are not as good, but I'm talking about our social values.
No amount of convincing, will sway people who are determined to defend their values and impose them on you. Whatever you do, you are damned if you do, you are damned if you don't. That kind of situation. So we have to keep on explaining the obvious, that's who we are. And hopefully, the hope is, in my profession, you have to be an optimist. Otherwise, you're in the wrong business. We have to continue explaining that this is who we are. This is a reflection of a society. It's not something that is, abstract. And hopefully they will understand.
You are with people who call themselves democratic. And some of the decisions that have been taken by Uganda have gone through a democratic process. Why isn't that being respected, you think?
That doesn't matter when people are defending their values. They want their values to come on top. And they are not shy about it. They will say, this is what our society believes in. We believe you are not, acting or behaving the way we would like. And you say, no, please, with respect, we are who we are. Let's cooperate where we agree. And this kind of value clashes takes you nowhere. And I think, contrary to this, we are doing a lot of things with Western capitals beyond this debate, of clash of values and LGBT and others. We are doing a lot. We are doing a lot of trade. Forget about our
I know.
We are doing a lot of investment, FDI. So there is a lot that happens. We are cooperating in the regional security.
Still one more on that issue, because I want to know your own position, your own experience that you've gone through, especially in Uganda, the spotlights on Uganda, and the rest of the world is like, look at them. And yet you are supposed to be defending Uganda in New York. That must have been a tough decision, a tough moment for you.
No, it's not actually. I go in and explain who we are and try to really tell people what we are doing. And you know what? This is why forums like NAM and G77 really matters. We work in solidarity. And I have a lot of countries from the global south coming and says, leave Uganda alone. These values cut across the global south. This is who we are. Uganda alone at the UN or any other international forum cannot really convince people. We work as a group. We work as a group to explain ourselves, to really, that's how we can make impact.
All right, so now, from where you sit, if Uganda is to move, really, Uganda must look where Uganda has comparative and competitive advantage in terms of what we can sell to the world, and that really is in the area of agriculture. But the government you represent in New York seems to have neglected that area. They seem not to have understood that we are an agricultural kind of economy, and if we are to really get it big, let us develop where we have competence and comparative advantage, and then we can be able to approach the global market.
I don't think the government has really neglected agriculture. The statistics speak from themselves. The amount of investment, commercial agriculture, but also we cannot have the large part of our population in agriculture. It's not sustainable. We have to go into services. We have to go into industrialization, because agriculture, the trend is becoming mechanized. For example, a tractor can do what hundreds of people do.
That's true.
So I think we need to really debunk this notion that, and be proud of it, that the most of our people are engaged in commercial agriculture. In the US, the statistics, less than 2% of the people are engaged in agriculture. The rest are in services. And I think that's the route we should take. Even other developing countries that have done well, so that we can really push.
So apart from coffee, probably, what is it that we are selling to the world? That here is Uganda, and this is what we are doing big time.
Apart from coffee, of course, we are really beginning to do well in tourism. The numbers, even regardless of what happens in
You know, tourism money is also coward money.
It's coward money, but
just one single bullet in Kibale National Park, and people are just
but people take
cancelling their bookings.
But people really take a strategic look at the country. You saw what happened in Kibale, and you saw tourists flooding there. You know, tourists now are more sophisticated than 20 years ago. They look at the country, what the country has to offer. It's insecure everywhere in the world, depending on. I've had people being robbed in some of these capitals, tourists stabbed. You know, so people take a strategic view and say, look, there are problems now, but they are not going. I'm not going to cancel my bookings in 2 months. And I think you look at the numbers. Tourism in Uganda is improving. The mining sector is improving, and other areas in services, conferences. We really can go there and really do well. So I think we need to really.
I don't think Kampala can actually. Well, you pulled off. You've got NAM and G77, but these are good one-offs because in that space we cannot compete with Nairobi or Kigali, can we?
No, we don't need to compete with Kigali or Nairobi, but we have our niche. You know, look at our climate. Look at our friendly population. Look at the facilities we have. I mean, we are now seated in one of the best hotels in the region, the Serena. You know, everybody that comes here gets impressed. I think we can leverage conferences. And with this new facility, watch the space. You know, we are going to be competitive in the region and worldwide. I think we're going to have a lot of UN meetings and summits here.
So, will non-allied movement summit in Kampala or G77 look into the regional challenges that we face? Today, we have increased the size, the geographical size of the East African community region. It's coming from the Indian Ocean to the Atlantic. But just the other day, I saw Somalia cutting relations with Ethiopia because Ethiopia has gotten into an agreement with Somaliland to use the port of Berber. So how does non-allied movement of G77, try to look into the issues of our region? Because if it comes to Kampala, it should be able to focus on what is going on in the Congo. It should be able to focus on what is going on in Somalia and come out with a solution. Because if you converge in Kampala, more than 130 countries, and leave the Congo the way it was, and leave Somalia the way it is, then the people of Africa and this region have not benefited.
These are pains of growth. The global south has been going through phases. And these conflicts and tension between countries are not limited only to our region and Africa. They are in Latin America. They are in Asia. You have been following. But the added value of the non-aligned movement is to help these countries in a spirit of solidarity and cooperation. Not finger pointing, not condemnation, but to express solidarity and work together. And that really makes miracles happen. When these countries that have misunderstandings meet in Kampala, there's going to be a lot of bilaterals on the side. The document of NAM, you should take time and look at it. It's really coached in a way that helps these countries. Everybody expresses themselves and explains themselves in really a family setting of developing countries.
You see, we can talk big, talk about 120 countries, 137 countries, but our own 8 countries in the region, we are living in our own turmoil. Just Congo has just chased the East African Standby Brigade. And when they're leaving, they are calling in SADC. That's a combination for another chaos. And I'm bringing those countries in the discussion because you have a group of many countries, of 120. So they should be able to solve problems of our region. Or maybe take a position on the problems of our region instead of us having remaining the chaos.
The position will be taken in the document. These countries will come and express themselves, put their input in the document. But what matters is that the East African community is the most integrated region in Africa in terms of economics, in terms of socially, and despite of the conflicts and misunderstandings. And I think it's not a linear process that you first end conflicts and integrate. And that's the beauty of this. I mean, look at the Congo. Look at the figures of trade between Uganda and Congo.
The volume are increasing.
Exactly. And that tells you something, that these conflicts, we need to end them. It's important. but we can end them through this integration and confidence building. I don't agree with people that say you cannot integrate when, you know, politicians are feuding, countries are in conflict. No, the people-to-people interaction and trade is really going to be a game changer in future.
Yeah, but of course some people are holding on to their, you know, their sovereign powers, because for the region to integrate, you have to, you know, to compromise or give away some powers so that people can be together.
Absolutely.
But moving forward, is this region, for example, when presidents come to Munyonyo for 3 or 4 days, and after that President Yoweri Museveni takes up the chairmanship of the non-allied movement for 3 years, what does that mean?
What it means that Uganda will really be at the epicenter of diplomacy of the global south. Both NAM and G77, by the way, are the only 2 forums that represent the interests of the global south in international forums, not only at the UN, the World Bank and other places. What does that mean is that Uganda will be coordinating the common positions of all these countries. And really that tells you what these countries think about Africa and Uganda, that you have the capacity to coordinate the developing countries. And that's really very, very important.
You know, you can coordinate. Sometimes you come up with the policy positions, maybe some declarations. I'm going to give you an example of something important that came out from a meeting in Kigali, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. That is supposed to make African countries, you know, trade and do business together. But guess what? They don't.
They do.
No, but not at a level that is, you know, tell me what are we selling to Sudan, to Algeria, or to Botswana, to Zambia, to Swaziland? What?
I mean, the legal framework is in place, which is the treaty, the African Free Trade Area Agreement, and the majority of African countries have signed on. Now,
yes, they have.
What is important now is putting the supply chains into place. You know, Africa has not really been integrated in terms of the road infrastructure, in terms of currencies, you know, convertibility, and that's being worked on.
But you see, this is not the first NAM you're having, and you have the biggest number of the NAM members coming from Africa, but they have not been able to address those bottlenecks.
They have. The African Union has.
You know, first of all, the issue of the infrastructure, is it because of the money or also the will?
I think it's money most of the time, and funding.
Yet Uganda is building roads in the Congo. On their own.
Yeah, and that is South-South cooperation.
Yeah, but if they came together, by now would be having, Africa would be having roads at least from east to the west.
Absolutely.
From north to the south.
Yeah.
Somebody should be able to drive from here to Lagos, Nigeria, or from Cairo to Cape Town.
Absolutely, and that you've seen, people can say it's a horror dream, the 2063 agenda of the African Union, that is really has 10-year implementation phases. And you can see when Africa, these days, if you are going to get funding, you negotiate as a region, not national projects. That trend is phasing out. You know, if you want a road, it has to cut across 2 or 3 countries. And it's happening in West Africa. It's going to happen in our region. You have been following the debates of the SGR, you know, railway projects that cuts across Kenya and Uganda. So that's the trend, that you cannot have a national infrastructure project. It does not make sense.
Yeah, but you see, the rhetoric and what they keep hearing from our leaders, they are talking about our milk is not selling in Kenya, our sugar is not selling in Tanzania. It's not like the East African, it's not an East African product. Every president, including President Yoweri Museveni, is fighting for the Ugandan market, for the Ugandan milk, for the Ugandan sugar, and the Ugandan maize. But if they were to look at it from the prism you're telling us, they should be actually looking at it from a regional perspective.
But those are not mutually exclusive, you know, because regional integration begins with one country really defending its interests so that it's not disadvantaged, you know, so that it can, you know, trade with an advantage. But these advantages, you have heard the president saying, look here, don't block Tanzanian rice to Uganda. If you are not effective, you know, if you are not being effective, if you are not optimally producing rice, without, you have to compete. There has to be an element of competition.
I've not really seen, apart from the race example really, where the presidents, including our own, has shown what we can do for the region. I'm always hearing what the region can do for an individual country.
No, but you've talked about roads in Congo. That's what we are doing for the region.
Well,
developing roads in Congo so that we can trade. Another forgotten successful project is COMESA. That vehicles can move across many countries with one insurance, and that has really promoted a lot of trade. In the context of COMESA, we trade with DRC, we trade with Zambia, and I think things are happening in Africa, not maybe at the pace we would like, but when you study the history of regional integration globally, it starts slowly, and Africa has leapfrogged regional integration compared to other regions in the world.
But when we speak, even if we speak with one voice, do the developed countries care?
They do. Because, it reduces the costs if you are dealing with the whole of Africa or the whole of East Africa. If you are, like an American investment bank or infrastructure bank or project, if you deal with East Africa, it makes more economic sense. They listen, and it's good business for them. If you are dealing with Asia, if an Asian company, Vietnam company, for example, telecom company, establishes itself in Uganda and can do business across the East African region, that makes more business sense. You can attract investment as one single investment destination. And one of the things that is happening as one of the side events in NAM is the business forum that will take place here at Serena, where all the investment agencies in East Africa are going to meet together with the chambers of commerce from countries of the Middle East of Asia to really talk about investment as a region, as opposed to Uganda, like you were saying. And this is happening on the sidelines of NAM.
But some people, when they want to invest in your country and they're looking long term, in some cases they have to look at the political stability of your country. And as far as Uganda is concerned, yes, we are stable for now, but there's that element of transition that I'm sure can cause worry for some long-term investor. What happens? Because this is a country that has never had a smooth transition for 60 years. If somebody wants to come and invest in this economy, won't that be a bother?
No, it won't.
Why not?
Because, you really cannot really peg your hedge on stability. The country itself has its people, has its institutions. That's what you look at. So you think an investor does not think about the democratic pillars, and because sometimes we get democratic reversals here, one step forward, two steps back, and if a country has not had a smooth transition of leadership, you think that can be no. Look at Asia. They don't waste time with this academic exercise of, they really, they have had leaders for a long time. What matters is stability. And, they developed. You looked at, Singapore, you can argue they have a different value system, they have this. But really, so long as the country is stable, and there is a track record of being stable, there are institutions, security institutions.
Well, we have a tumultuous history, you know that.
Yeah, we do, but for
one of the reasons is because there was a problem of leadership.
But for the last 30 years,
there's no doubt we've been stable, but I'm talking about there's going to be a time when you wonder, how is Uganda, because also for the last 30 years we have failed to show that we can transition from probably one leader to another.
Let me tell you, when that time comes, it will happen.
So that's why I'm asking whether you think,
if you're a serious investor, if you're a serious investor,
you have to think, isn't my money going to go to West at one point?
You also look at the past of the country. This country has come from far, to blow it up. I can tell you. And these investors are more sophisticated than we think. They keep on pouring money in this country. And that's a show of confidence. But you look at Asia, and that's why you take when you take the analytical approach of the global south, look at Asian countries, look at Malaysia, look at Singapore, look at even China. Stability of leadership is more important for investment, you know, than these other abstract.
But countries like China, well, their motto is that it is predictable, that's going to be stable because, you know, of how they have chosen to.
Exactly.
But for us, we want to be democratic, but then without democracy.
No, that's another discussion for another time. Let's really focus on NAM and G77. But I can tell you, really, once these countries are in solidarity, even where there are challenges, the global south, you know, not finger pointing. Once you develop solidarity, you even develop a confidence of talking about the difficult conversations. That's the beauty. You know, if you are in a group like NAM or G77, you're looking at countries in terms of solidarity, of expressing solidarity, and unconditional support, respect for sovereignty, you know, mutual respect. And those principles are time-tested in terms of countries being stable and developing.
Yeah, but sometimes you cannot talk about mutual respect when there's nothing you're putting on the table. Because if you are going with your begging bowl, how do you start
look
asking
at, we don't beg, the global south, we don't beg from each other. We really support each other. Look, the statistics of South-South cooperation, what developing countries offer to each other. It's unconditional, it's real. Look at the investments, for example, from India and China and Singapore into other countries of the global south. It's staggering. It makes ODA look bad. It makes aid flows from the north really look bad. It's real. And the debate at the UN has been, oh, but this is not measurable. You know, we've been having this tension of how do you measure South-South cooperation? It's not supposed to be measured. It's based on solidarity. You know, I'll tell you in the 70s, you know about the Tazara.
The Tanzanian Zambia, right?
Really.
Built by the Chinese.
When they were still poor. China was not the China it is. Look at that, the impact it has had between those two countries, Tanzania and Zambia, over the years. So really we can leverage this and improve infrastructure, even in areas of fighting poverty. You know, we can really do a lot as the global south.
So the global south meets in Kampala when the world is having a lot of trouble, a lot of problems, especially in the Middle East. The bombs and the drones and whatever are still roaring, and some of those are members that will be coming to Kampala. Do we have even the capacity, you as NAM or G77, to tackle issues of that nature?
Absolutely. Let me tell you, one of the big components of NAM is the Palestinian Committee. You know, NAM was created to fight decolonization, and Palestine has been at the core of the business of NAM. So one of the meetings is a ministerial committee meeting on Palestine that will take place either on the 17th or the 18th of January. And that meeting is taking place in the background of what is happening in the Middle East. And countries will sit and discuss. And you know, the issues in the Middle East is the two-state solution. Is what is happening in Ghana is in Gaza is a humanitarian crisis. And leaders will take decisions on that, and NAM expresses solidarity with the Palestinian people. That's the founding principles of NAM.
But you know, that has also been a big issue in the United Nations Security Council. Even when we meet to make a declaration and point out what you can, the humanitarian crisis continues, and the bombing continues, and the two-state solution actually even seems to move far away from being a reality than it was during the Oslo Accord.
And this has really dented the reputation of the Security Council as the organ of the UN that is supposed to maintain international peace and security. And the call for reform now of the UN Security Council has even become more louder, because, you know, look at the war in Ukraine and Russia. Look at the Middle East. The Security Council has been really wanting. And the Global South is saying, look here, this institution that was created to really maintain international is failing. And the action has moved to the General Assembly, where we all sit now, these days. We are more busy than we have ever been. And this tells you one thing, that the world is changing. You know, these institutions that were created after 1945 needs to be reformed.
So when you meet with your fellow ambassadors in the United Nations, and sometimes you see the world is divided. Still maybe the East and West. And yet, you seem not to have a solution for something, for what would you think be a small problem. Your voice is not heard. The Security Council will be divided. The General Assembly will vote on something, and that's it. There's no impact. Sometimes we wonder, where is the impact of the diplomacy, of all these diplomats who are converging in New York?
Let me tell you,
on matters Palestine, on matters Israel, on matters Ukraine, on matters Moscow.
In my business, we are eternal optimists. You know,
you're living on hope.
Yeah, we do, and we keep hope alive, which is really important. And I think when the General Assembly takes a vote, it shows the global opinion as opposed to the Security Council. This is where the global opinion is going. And even countries that are against it take note. Even their own populations, they have to explain that why is the world against the position we have took. It is having impact. And these countries take these votes in the General Assembly. I've never seen the interest and the lobbying, you know, compared to 10 years ago. So this is shifting. Where it will take us, nobody knows, but we are going somewhere where the world is going to be more democratic in terms of global governance.
What makes you think it's going to be more democratic, especially when you're giving examples of more stable countries in Asia, and actually they are not even democratic?
No, but democratic doesn't mean in the real sense of how you perceive it to be. You know, in the old days, you know, we used to have two groups of people. You know, progressives and reactionaries. I think I don't want to call you reactionary, but really, democracy is not in terms of
you should define it in your own way.
And yeah, exactly. Look at the Asian countries. Look at the statistics of ASEAN. $6 trillion. That is minus China and India. So Vietnam, Indonesia, of this one. $6 trillion economies. Their voices are heard. You know, you have seen the U.S. President Biden go to Vietnam to sign a strategic relationship because of their economy. Vietnam, I think in your life it was bombed to the ground. Look at the economy. Look at some of these countries where they are going. Economic power matters, not the way people would want you to govern yourselves.
So your colleagues who are coming to Kampala, it won't be a photo opportunity. There will be real, tangible things discussed about. And then will these leave Uganda better than?
Let me give you a snapshot of the program of NAM. We are going to have 3 major meetings. The senior officials, where the business will be done is in the senior officials meeting, where negotiating documents will take place. We will sit and fold our sleeves up 3 a.m. most of the days to come up with these documents that are negotiated hard by all the countries. Then we'll have our ministers meet to endorse what the senior officials and recommend it to the summit. So it will be real business, real tough business. This will be my 6th NAM summit, and I've been to these places. Really, it's hard work. Yeah, it's hard work.
And what is the confirmation like of those who are coming to attend, especially at the head of state level?
Heads of states level, we are almost over 30 and counting. The coming weeks more will confirm, but in terms of delegations, we're almost approaching 100, which is really high compared to the past NAM summits.
Okay, so
it's really a vote of confidence, but also it's what is happening globally. Countries are taking serious G77 and NAM as forums of the global south. And the global south is not the global south of the 60s and 70s. These are big economies. You know, look at the statistics. And China, you know, is part of G77. They are coming. India, you know, and all these countries. Brazil.
So there's a likelihood that you're going to have some delegations come for NAM and actually they don't go back and wait for the G77.
Absolutely. They're confirming for both, in most cases.
So they'll be staying in Kampala waiting for more.
Yeah, yeah. And there is, you know, they are back to back. NAM summit starts on the 19th, ends on the 20th. Third South Summit, which is G77, starts on 21st to 22nd.
Okay.
Yeah. But officials will come on the 14th. Then 15th, 16th is officials, ministers are 17th, 18th.
Okay, so the heads of state are 19th.
Yeah.
Okay, that's going to be a very busy schedule for Uganda.
It is.
And especially you who must be working hard as a top diplomat. That's a very tough.
So help me God.
So you said you are eternally optimistic. You are optimistic that even this will turn out well and then there will be dividends at the end of the day.
Absolutely. I am.
When I look back in the previous summits, I'm not as optimistic as you are, because I want to be realistic, basing on the past examples of Uganda. When CHOGM comes, actually, it ended up with a vice president being a guest in Luzira.
I can confidently tell you that I'm the deputy CEO of the National Organizing Committee. This has been a very disciplined show. You have not heard in the media, you know, scuffles, fighting. We have not imported cars. We have not done many. It's been a tight budget, disciplined, to deliver a cost-effective meeting for Uganda.
Yeah, but also I'm wondering why, you know, before CHOGM there was a lot of buzz. Like now they say there's a lot of vibe. But somehow Ugandans have not had that buzz for NAM. Yet NAM and G77 are way bigger than CHOGM.
Yeah,
what created that? As if there's some kind of less interest in the
no, these are really, this is not UB40. This is boring. These are political meetings. Intergovernmental business is boring. Huh? You know, it's documents. It's heads of states coming and going to Munyonyo. There is no queen or king involved. You know, it's serious stuff. And that's why there is no buzz. Somebody was telling me, we don't see billboards. This is not really for the Uganda.
There was one for Honorable, Right Honorable.
No, but this is not for NAM. Huh? This is really not for NAM audiences international. It's people like you, the elite. It's people that follow this stuff. It's diplomats, it's journalists. It's really boring. Maybe on social media. Social media, digital campaign, I've seen it has really stepped up. And that's where it belongs. It's boring stuff.
Okay. Well, good enough is happening in January when the winter is so biting hard in New York. So
Absolutely.
you've had an opportunity to enjoy the sunshine of Kampala before you go back to the enclave of winter.
Yeah.
I want to thank you so much for having given us your time, and of course for having shown us your own optimism of NAM, of G77, and also where Uganda stands.
Yeah.
Ambassador Adonia.
Thank you.
Ambassador Adonia, what's going to be a concluding remark tonight?
My concluding remarks is that business for me and Uganda begins after the end of the summit. We have to really prepare to chair these two organizations for 1 year and 3 years. And we'll need the support of people like you, of the public, and we'll keep on you updated. We'll be accountable to the Ugandan public how we are performing on the international stage.
Very soon we have the conference of the, is it the Summit of the Future or Conference of the Future?
In New York, yes, in September.
Exactly, what is that all about?
This is all about reform of the international architecture. When you look at the Bretton Woods institutions of the World Bank and IMF, the international financial architecture that really disadvantaged developing countries, that's going to be, the reforms are going to be discussed in New York. When you look at peace and international peace and security, peace building, peacekeeping is not working. How can it be perfected? When you look at the global institutions, are they responsive to the global challenges? No. That is the summit of the future. We will negotiate it in New York throughout the year. Our leaders will meet in September and adopt a declaration. That's going to be a lot of work.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Uganda's top diplomats and Uganda's permanent representative of the United Nations in New York, Ambassador Adonia Ayebare. I want to thank you for the time you've given us and for having added value to our platform. Ugandans, you always know how to host. We are told we host people very well. We are very accommodative. We are very good people. So let us show our best for the people who come to Kampala so that they can have an unforgettable, beautiful memory of our country. Good night and God bless Uganda.
Thank you.